So we made it here. We made it to a little lake in the Leech Lake area. You know, from Park Rapids all the way over to Grand Rapids, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of smaller lakes. And we're on, we stopped at a Big Sand Lake today, and we're gonna do a little fishing. It's a multi-species mecca. And when Leech Lake has its ups and downs, and when it's poor fishing or we have stormy days or big wind, we have to get off of Leech Lake sometimes. And we are so lucky to have these little gems hidden everywhere. And from trout lakes to big pike lakes to musky lakes off of Leech Lake to bass fishing, and that's what we're targeting today. Today's show, we're gonna go out, we're gonna do kind of a bass fishing for dummies per se, because I am not a bass fishing expert by any means. I have caught bass, and when they're on weed edges and we're walleye fishing, we catch bass and we'll stop and we'll use live bait and catch bass. But as you know, bass fishing is probably the most popular sport when it comes to sport fishing inland waters in the United States. And bass tournaments are huge. And in Minnesota here, we have a huge new thing called High School Bass Fishing League, college fishing now. And these kids nowadays that are getting into fishing have all the opportunity to fish their way from high school through college into the Bassmaster Classic. And in the storylines there, and you can hear it all the time. And in Minnesota here, kids, the grassroots of fishing starts with these smaller lakes. I myself started my fishing with Take a Kid Fishing, you know, in Bemidji area, Northland Fishing Tackle, the Peterson family. I had this program started up there years and years ago, and I was lucky enough to go fishing with Take a Kid Fishing. Fished with Darren Olson. I can remember it was yesterday. 12 years old, got in the boat of a gentleman by the name of Rob Baumer. They took me out, and the first time I got to see graphs in action, we were on Lake Bemidji, caught some walleyes, and I was hooked. You know, and now we get back, we take kids fishing, we do guide trips obviously with Leisure Outdoor Adventures, and our guide life is to get out and explore and become better fishers when it comes to multi-species and different species and staying in that bite. And you know, kind of going full circle back to the Peterson family, one of my guests today is Jace Peterson, who is a phenomenal bass fisherman, young guy growing up, fishes bass tournaments. Peterson family, Northland Fishing Tackle, they founded the business, and it's a huge tackle company in the United States and across Canada, and just very, very big in the market of fishing. Jace Peterson's now a bass fisherman, and he's going to take his time today. We're lucky to have him jump in the boat with me and Jim Ernster, who is one of our multi-species fishing guides, who takes people to these little lakes. He was just on Portage Lake yesterday with the group, catching bass and doing just this, and just getting lots of bites and more action when the walleye fishing slows. So I'm excited to learn more about bass fishing. We're going to meet up with Jace and Jim Ernster, and we're going to tackle this lake today and see if we can get on the line and get in the water and see if we can learn a few things and share it with you.
Guiding, while to some people on the outside it might seem like a glamorous thing, it's a lot of work.
But every time somebody steps into my boat for a guide trip, it's their trip. This is their trip. And
spending the day on the water with people, it's really a dream come true.
It's just truly special experience. Setting the hook, netting the fish, high-fiving people, and that's truly the passion.
What drives me is fishing different species and making memories with people. It's a phenomenal thing.
And that's what keeps me coming back. That's what fuels my fire for guiding.
Every day is something new, and seeing the smiles on people's faces when they catch that personal best makes it all worthwhile.
And I love watching kids get addicted to fishing.
We are a family. Between all of us, we spend countless hours on the water. And at the end of the day, it's about making sure that the people that were in your boat learned something and enjoyed that experience and made some memories along the way.
31 incher, baby! Woo, woo, woo!
Chris, you're up. Am I going to get this one, Nick?
get him. There you go.
Beautiful fish.
Oh boy.
One of my faves.
A little nicer one.
There we go, buddy.
Right away! What a beautiful Leech Lake muskie, those spots. It's not a super tank.
Nice fish, buddy.
Thanks.
That's a good one.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. First nice fish of the day. On top of these fish, like you said.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
On.
Yeah!
That is how you catch a Leech Lake, isn't it?
That's awesome. Okay, we wanted to go catch a big one?
Let's pick it.
Yeah! 37! 8 minutes to go! Woo!
The Guide Life with Leisure Outdoor Adventures is brought to you by these great partners.
here we are, boys. I'm excited about this. You know, get off the sandbar. I like that. We're on a little lake off of Leech Lake. Obviously, this does not look like Leech Lake. We're on Big Sand Lake in the Park Rapids area, just a stone's throw away from Leech Lake. And you know, sometimes we have to get off of Leech Lake for different reasons. We have weather days, maybe the bite slows, maybe people are just after a species that there's more plentiful on different lakes.
Right.
You know, and today I have Jace Peterson and Jim Ernster, and Jim's been with us since we started Leisure Outdoor Adventures. It's been 13 years. It's been a fun ride. Jim and I both fish walleyes quite a bit on Leech Lake. But Jim's also, I would say, more of a multi-species angler, where Jim will go ahead and tackle some of these other species, the bass fishing, which we're going to talk a lot about today, hence why Jace is here. But Jim will take people to some of the smaller lakes just off of Leech Lake. And there's a bunch of lakes. Jim's going to talk about that. Jim, what have you done recently off of Leech Lake? And maybe talk about, for our viewers and or potential customers, why you would do that.
Sure, yeah, and you know, I mean, since I started 13 years ago, you know, I mean, I would always make sure I would have red tails in my boat, you know, and as fishing has evolved over the last decade, now my goal is to never have a minnow in my boat until, again, in the fall, once we get past that spring shiner bite. And so as such, I've also really tried to focus on other species other than walleyes. When we first started, Jason Fried and I would fish a lot of the lakes in that Hackensack area: Pleasant Lake, Stony Lake, Moccasin Lake, Mule Lake, 10 Mile Lake. And Toby mentioned we're in this Park Rapids area. There's a gazillion lakes over here that you can break down. And quite honestly, some of those smaller lakes allows you to fish more effectively on those windy days. And you get people off of Leech Lake and you bring them to a 10 Mile Lake or a Pleasant Lake or any of those lakes. And you know, again, I love to fish smallmouth, I love to fish bass. Full disclosure, I cheat when I do it. A lot of times I'm drop shotting a leech, a live leech, or I'm lindy rigging a leech or a crawler. But you know what, at the end of the day, it's about making clients feel good and have a great experience. And if I try to teach them how to Ned rig or how to throw top waters, quite honestly, I'm not going to be super effective at it. That's why I also am super excited to have Jace, so I can learn some more myself and continue to evolve as an angler. As soon as you stop learning and growing as an angler, that's the end of it right there. And so I continue to kind of branch out and try to become a better multi-species angler day in and day out. And for me, variety. I'm a teacher, you know, when it comes 9 months out of the year. I certainly enjoy my time as a fishing guide, but I like the balance. I love to fish walleyes. I love to fish multi-species. Again, it's about the balance for me. And so I try to do that to help out various clients. You got people that want to fish walleyes, but at the same time, there's people that are just happy to catch fish, and I'm happy to have them in my boat.
And the guide life, you know, we're out here breaking down another lake, and it's another option for you. And we, like you said, technology changes, presentation changes, forward-facing sonar has been a huge game changer.
Yep.
And with all that being said, bass fishing, you said, you know, you'll cheat and use leeches. I would be doing exactly the same thing. But I think in our brain, we have to learn, just like new technology, that sometimes live bait isn't the best tactic,
right,
and plastics will outfish. And that's where we bring Jace Peterson into the show. And we're lucky to have Jace. Mentioned a little bit in the truck there that Jace Peterson is a young man from Bemidji, grew up fishing in the Peterson family, and Jace fishes bass tournaments. And Jace, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. And this is a new lake that you haven't fished either.
Correct,
So this is gonna be perfect, because together we're gonna collaborate. We got some spots, we have technology, we should be able to find some fish, and we're gonna break down some different tactics. Jace fishes bass tournaments. Jace, kind of talk about bass fishing now compared to when you started, forward-facing sonar, everything,
right?
And maybe how some of the systems that when I was a kid, we threw spinner baits and
right,
or jig worms. That was it,
yep,
right? And so now I don't see a lot of that on bass tournament shows when I watch
right,
it anymore. Things have changed. So just talk about this area, north central Minnesota, Bemidji, Walker, Leech Lake, and what kind of the tactic is. If you could bring just a couple of things, like talk about your experience as a college bass fisherman, yep, what you learned, and where you are today.
So growing up in the Bemidji area, I was really spoiled. We had so many bass lakes in the area, largemouth and smallmouth. The biggest thing in the last 5 to 10 years is the smallmouth population has really boomed. A lot of the lakes growing up had, you know, there's smallmouth here, there's smallmouth there, but there wasn't a big population of them. In the recent years, now almost all the tournaments in Minnesota, if there's smallmouth in the lake, it's tough to beat the smallmouth with largemouth. So I think that has to do with, one, electronics. I mean, guys are using electronics to find either suspended fish, rock humps, rock spines, but then the equipment has gotten better too. Thinner diameter line, small finesse hooks. I mean, the percentage of landing the fish are easier now too. The equipment, the drag, but no, growing up super spoiled to live in the area.
Obviously you have the family, right?
Exactly.
Your dad, your grandpa's.
When I was in kindergarten and first grade, Grandpa would come and pick me up from school. Instead of going home, we'd go back to Northland Tackle, and I'd be running around the back. I just remember the yellow bins, picking stuff out. Probably not what I was supposed to be doing, but kept me busy until he had to leave. So I was very fortunate in that regard. Grew up fishing. That's what I wanted to do growing up, and fortunate to have people like you guys to invite me along and be on the show with you guys, and hopefully learn things from you, but hopefully I can teach a little thing about awesome. Bass fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk more about, as we're fishing, I'll ask you some questions too about college fishing and what that experience was like, and because it's intriguing to me. Obviously, I watch bass fishing shows, tournaments. Our friend Jeff Gustafson, we watched him for the Bassmaster Classic, a Lund guy, right? And him, forward-facing sonar, kind of what we're talking about, was able to win the Bassmaster Classic on smallmouth on a lake where otherwise would be won by largemouth.
Exactly.
So that's cool, and we can apply that. You mentioned Leech Lake. We need to do a show on Leech Lake at some point too.
Yeah, we do.
But there happens to be a 100-boat tournament on Leech Lake today, and those fish are getting beat up. So you know what? With the weather and chance of storms, we thought let's go experiment and explore and find some more options for us and teach us. This again, I'm saying this show is kind of a bass fishing for dummies,
right?
Because other than a drop shot and a spinnerbait and a Ned rig, right, which is what I've heard about. I don't own one. I don't have one on my boat. So Jace has brought some stuff, and we're going to learn how to bass fish. So enjoy it. We're going to hit the water here, and we'll go break her down.
Perfect.
Points, cups, and little flats. I think that would be a good place to start.
Yep.
Right? We'll throw the forward-facing sonar down and scope it out a little bit.
All right. So midsummer, when we're talking largemouth or smallmouth in the Leech Lake, Park Rapids, Bemidji area, a good place to start is the weed line or the break line. Humps, points, or just a shoreline with a sharp break is a good place to start. One of the first things that I reach for, whether it be smallmouth or largemouth, is a Ned rig. It's a short, small, presentation, any little stick worm. It doesn't have much action, but that's the whole point of it. Fishing on the bottom, this right here is a Northland Nedster. It's a football jig. I like a football jig just because it goes to the rocks a little bit better. Today we're fishing sand and rocks. But other than that, there's just a standard mushroom jig that also works well. So with a Ned rig, it's a small presentation. I'm actually going to cut this just a little bit. And the worm, like I said, doesn't really matter. It's just a stick bait of any kind. The biggest thing you want to do with a Ned rig is you want to make sure it's straight. Just like a spot tail shiner in the spring, you want to make sure that minnow is dead on, so when you pull it through the water column, it looks like a bait fish, a real bait fish. So you kind of want to get your spot marked. Once you know that, just thread it on, make sure you're dead center. And then with this bait, it's actually a stretchy material. You kind of snap it into place, pull it up. And that right there is a fish catcher. Looks like a little perch or a crayfish on the bottom. This plastic actually floats, so when it's on the bottom, it's going to stand up like that and look like it's a perch pecking at the bottom, or a crayfish that is in defense. Try not to get eaten by these bass.
I have a walleye rod out here because me, I like to fish walleyes, and I just put this on, but I guarantee it's not perfectly straight, and I end up tearing it to get it straight once it's on there, which then you lose some of the life expectancy of your plastic, right? Mm-hmm. And in doing what you just did, you measured first, then put it on.
Right.
Great tip. Thank you.
There's one. Feels pretty small. Might be a perch. Oh, it's a rock bass.
Ernster, there's rock
It's a
bass.
rock
So you got
bass.
two? Oh, you got weeds. We got a Rocky Rococo on
That's
a
right.
drop shot.
Yeah. So I picked up a drop shot. I rigged up a Ned rig for Jim. One thing with bass fishing is, especially exploring a new lake like this, keep your options open. If both of us were using a Ned rig and it didn't work, obviously we wouldn't know. But I'm using something different, Jim's using something different, and Toby's gonna use something different as well. Hopefully one of us figures it out, and then we'll all be using the same thing, right?
Exactly. Break it down. Being a Guide Life host is a lot of work. Chasing it down. TV. Have my coffee here. See his drop shot going right down on this fish. See how they react. And that one reacted.
Oh, yeah. There's one.
You got a bass?
Might be. Feels a lot better than that first Rocco.
What kind of bass might you have?
Looks like a bass. Pull and
Largie?
drag. I don't
Small
know
or
yet.
largie?
Largemouth.
Oh,
Nice
nice.
largemouth.
You need a net?
Sure.
Ernster's good at that.
Fat one. So cool in that clear water.
That's a beautiful bass.
Good one.
Nice job, Jace.
Perfect.
Heck yeah.
There we go.
Beautiful bass.
First fish of the morning. We just started here. We just went down one break line using our electronics. We're actually thinking we're going to find some smallmouth, but we'll take a nice largemouth like that on a drop shot. That's a good start, hopefully. I'd like to see them bigger, but that's a really good start, especially largemouth.
That's a great fish. Good job, Jace. You know, that one, we talked about a drop shot. Bye, buddy. And it's something that I now have one tied up. I'm still learning how to tie them up, the effectiveness of them. You know, I'm as a walleye guy, I'm trying to learn to use them for walleye fishing, but you got a plastic on there. It looks like a split tail. Talk about the system, what a drop shot is, and how it works, and the kind of structure, especially in this type of structure we're in right now.
So the thing about a drop shot that makes it so effective is, especially with electronics, we can see the fish, place that bait right close to him, and then the weight keeps that bait in one spot, and then you just slowly move your rod tip back and forth, and that bait stays in the same spot the entire time, but that little tail is moving. And we've been getting perch bites, rock bass bites. I chose a green pumpkin, just a 3.5-inch worm, to make it look like those perch that these bass are feeding on.
Fish where the fish are. That part ain't rocket science. In terms of walleye production, Leech Lake is best. Trappers Landing Lodge on the south shore of Leech Lake has the finest lodging on the entire lake. With renowned angling expert Josh Bullivant managing the property, Trappers Landing is the place to be, opening weekend and all season long. Fish where the fish are. Stay at Trappers. Call for reservations 218-836-2500.
Stop into Ray's Sport and Marine today to check out our remaining 2022 in-stock inventory or place your 2023 order with guaranteed price lock until September 1st. After September 1st, prices are subject to change, so now is the time to reserve your new boat. From tillers to side consoles and full windshield models, we sell them all. Our sales and service team is here to help you get on the water. Ray Sport and Marine, 896 Northeast 1st Street, Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
So we talked a little bit about a Ned rig. Caught that first fish on a drop shot. Actually just got broken off. I got to retie here. A drop shot is a super effective way. Like I said, you can keep that bait in the same place. With our forward-facing sonar, you can see those fish and keep it, you know, right in their face. Tying a drop shot isn't too complicated. You kind of have to have a certain knot, so you have a right tag line to make that dropper work with your weight. So I'm just going to go through real quick what I like to do, what type of knot I like to do, and how to rig a drop shot. So the knot I use is actually a polymer knot, same knot I use for braid. But you go through once with a long tag, and this tag line is going to be the line that your weight goes off of. So long tag line, and then I go back through. So now I'm doubled back. I have a loop. And same thing, so now this tag line is how much weight or how much line you're gonna have off for your drop shot weight at the bottom. And I'm actually gonna do a little bit longer tag than that. So now you got the correct length you want for your dropper. And all you do is tie an overhand knot. Pull it somewhat tight. Now you have this here. You have to make your hook go through the loop, just like that. And now you pull your two strands tight. You can wet it a little bit. So now you have, your hook is tied on, right? But now you have this big long line that usually you cut off because you don't need that extra line. But that's where the drop shot comes into place. What you're gonna do with your tag line, instead of, you know, just having this sit like this and putting your weight on the bottom, you wanna go back through your hook. That's the most important step, because then that makes your line straight and your hook straight. So you're gonna go back through the eye of the hook. So now your hook sits perfectly straight on your line. Because if it's off to the side or upside down, you're not gonna get the correct hookup you want for largemouth, smallmouth. This is also an effective way for walleyes. Put a night crawler or a leech on it. And now you have the correct tag line for your weight. And for weight, I specifically use a drop shot weight. You can buy these at any local retailer. A split shot works just fine too. You can put a split shot, clamp it down. Depending on depth of water you're fishing, shallower, go light, 3/16, even an 1/8. Today we're fishing anywhere from 10 to 20 feet, so I'm using a quarter. Anything deeper I go 3/8 to a half. With the drop shot, this one you can pinch on. You can just slide your line so it pinches, which works fine. With rocks, sometimes your line will come out. So same thing here. I'll tie just any sort of fisherman's knot or overhand knot, just so this weight stays on just a little bit better. So I just cinch that line down. So now it doesn't have to be perfect because it's just the weight, but now I have a knot there, drop shot hook. I have about I usually do anywhere from a foot to 2 feet lead with the weight. And then any straight tail worm works perfect. Like I said, we're fishing around a lot of perch today, so I like green pumpkin if we're trying to imitate perch or a bluegill. But then slide this bait up. And for hook wise, you can use a plain number 2 live bait hook. You can nose hook these baits, these straight tail worms. Or I like to thread it. It gets that hook just a little bit back there farther. So say, a smallmouth has a little bit smaller mouth, and get that whole bait in and there we go, right on the top of the mouth. What do you got, Toby?
Well, you were doing a great job with that tip. I was just going to ask you about that. Just active target, and I wanted to get out of the room for the cameraman, so I just grabbed my plastic quick and ran up here and tried to catch a fish that, I know it's not really on topic today, but you know, these multi-species lakes truly have every species in them. This one's got big giant pike and certainly big walleyes, which I have a tendency to like to fish those. It's a priority for me. And when I see a couple big guys like that sitting out over deep water, certainly got to make a task. It's a beautiful fish. While we were on your break there of your tip, which you did a great job with, had a nice little walleye, 22 incher or something like that, but a beautiful specimen here on big sand, and just another multi-species lake. But this is what we catch. We caught a rock bass so far. We caught a largie, probably gonna get a small here hopefully soon.
That's right.
But a lot of fun, a lot of different tactics. That's a good one. But back to the species at hand, right? Fun. All right, I'll go back to my host station. Be right back.
That's the problem about these lakes. Is there's
Well, that's the
walleye,
thing.
there's walleyes off the edge, bass on the edge.
Yeah.
We get caught trying to
Drop 'em
catch
in.
anything, right?
We're trying to learn more about techniques, plastics, and we don't have large bait today, or large live bait today, and the proper use of a Ned rig and a drop shot. I mean, that's kind of the point. They do catch everything. Plastics do. This summer fishing, when there's a lot of bait in the water, you fish fast, fish effectively, and you catch fish.
It's a really big fish, whatever it is.
23-inch walleye.
Think so?
Yep. It was the same size as the other one that they were both. I mean, you don't know. It could be a little bit bigger.
Speed,
Get them coming up. Keep them coming up. And I'll give it the death ball. What we got there?
I think it might be the right play. Oh, it's
Walleye.
like a walleye.
What the heck?
Walleye on a Ned rig. It's
Well,
not the right
you know,
species.
It's a nice walleye.
Jim, you want to net it for me?
Perfect. Look at that.
That'll work. If we were
Now
on
I'm
the
gonna
hunt
have to
for
buy
them.
some Ned rigs,
Right.
not for bass
Hold that
fishing,
for
but for walleyes. Nice job.
That's not a bad one. Thought for sure it was going to be a nice smallmouth. But if we were keeping fish, that'd be the perfect fish
perfect
to keep.
size. Yeah.
Multi-species.
And you know, I've heard that drop shotting, Ned rigging, is like ultimately, like if you're going out fishing, just multi-species stuff.
Yep.
This is the jam.
It's a perfect little bait fish imitator, really. Do nothing bait, but it catches fish.
Perfect. Let's get the right species.
That's right.
I could like a bass. What do you got?
Feels good.
You like a smallie?
Feels like a smallie. It's coming up to jump.
Ernie, you gonna get that net, or are you? He's too busy. He's mad
It's a
he's not
largemouth. Largemouth in a smallmouth spot.
Look at that.
The drop
Sweet
shot
little
again.
bass. Heck yeah.
Way out deep where the smallmouth should have been, but we'll take it.
There's a couple more out there. Ernster cast.
On a drop shot again, he got my worm. We'll see if we can get another one. There's a little school of them here, so sweet.
You know, Jace, you obviously got to do the college bass fishing experience, and the fishing, you know, bass fishing in America is just exploding as far as kids go. And just talk a little bit about that experience and how you fell into it and what that was like, what you learned, and just you know, we were athletes too. We played hockey, and you did the bass fishing in college bass fishing. How does that work, and what was the benefit of that experience to you?
Yeah, so I met some of my best friends in college fishing. We kind of had, it was like a team. I played basketball in high school and got out of high school, went to college, and it's like kind of missed that bonding team atmosphere that, you know, you have with a high school sport. And bass fishing did that for me and a lot of other people. It was super fun to travel the country and fish in different tournaments. It's a super big deal in the, you know, across the United States right now. And high school fishing is a big part of that as well. Unfortunately, I was 1 year out from when my high school team started, but if I could go back, I definitely want to fish the high school league as well. You got bass or walleyes over there?
I don't know. What we got there?
Had it for a while. Big fish, whatever it is.
be the right flavor. Like a walleye getter again?
Big walleye.
Oh, is it a walleye?
Big walleye. On drop shot.
Holy. Oh, Ernster. There we go.
Trying to catch a smallmouth, but we'll take a bonus walleye.
Heck yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a nice fatty. He ate it. Wow. That actually makes me excited to watch that because this is kind of my jam. I love walleye fishing. I love musky fishing. I like catching anything that's big. Active target, tracking them down. Jace made a perfect cast with that drop shot, which seems to be the hot lure of choice. We got a couple bass in the boat. We got a couple walleyes. That is a dandy walleye right there.
Beauty.
See that?
The gold one. That's sweet.
That's
a drop shot.
On the drop shot. So there you go. Like, yeah, bass fishing for dummies, right?
That's right.
That just goes to show us walleye guys, we don't know everything either. So
yeah,
something I definitely need to tie up, and I think a lot of the people that are watching this show are probably going to give that a little try too. Nice job.
That's some of my bigger ones of the year.
Nice. Good timing. You know, Jace, we're still looking for these smallies. It seems like there's a lot of fish out and around humps. Is it pretty typical for this time of year on these lakes like this that you'll find multiple species in the same locations?
Yeah, I mean, the smallmouth and the walleyes are, it looks like in the same spot. We're still on the hunt for smallmouth, but we've come across pike, we've come across largemouth, and we've come across walleye so far. Especially that one. That was really fun.
That was a nice one.
Yeah, it was.
Off the side of the boat, and I flipped out a paddle tail, and I don't know, a lot of head shakes.
It's like a nice fish.
Whatever it is, it's nice. It was like 100 feet out there.
I missed that one.
This never gets old. I'm gonna go with gator. Just another hogger. Whatever. So disappointing. We're out here trying to find smallies, and
You might have taught me.
we just figured out where there's, like we talked about, where there's bait, there's fish. That's a dandy too. Just a fun way to fish. Off of Leech Lake, not very far, within 20 minutes. Beautiful day. Trying to catch some smallies, learning a lot about largemouth and smallmouth techniques that are working, and catching big fish. Thanks, buddy. That's fun.
Fun catch.
I almost had my chair in recliner mode. Just send one out there, catch a fish. Fun. That's it. They're fishy spots, right? We're gonna get a smallie though. We gotta get a smallie before we can leave. No pressure. Ernster's gonna get it. Maybe the bobber. Maybe we should try that bobber. Get some live bait out. Hey, it all works. But that was a lot of fun.
We're out here today and we've got this Maluna unhinged cooler, made in the USA, made right here in Minnesota, and this thing is absolutely amazing. Last thing we want to worry about in the morning is making sure that we have enough ice in the boat. We know that when we fill up our Maluna on the start of the week, that towards the end of the week, we're still going to have cold ice inside of there. Oversized handles, they're lightweight, easy to haul around, plenty of room, and these things are top notch. You want a cooler that'll keep ice for several days on end, these Maluna unhinged are where it's at.
Reed's Family Outdoor Outfitters is the #1 ice fishing headquarters. We have everything you need, from today's firearms to the latest fishing electronics and the hottest footwear and outdoor apparel. We only carry the best brands at the best prices. Have a question? No problem. We have the most knowledgeable team in the business, ready to answer your call personally 7 days a week. Whether you're visiting us in Walker, Minnesota, or touching your screen, with our state-of-the-art distribution center, we can get you gear when you need it fast. cast or blast, Reed's has the best service, best advice, and best price guaranteed.
Just like that. 1-2 punch. Toby found him for me. It's a good fish, whatever it is.
Pike? School pike again?
No, it's big
Largie?
largemouth.
Big largie out here in
Big
Suspendo land.
largemouth.
What the heck?
Gonna beat out the one I caught earlier.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
That's a nice bass, Jace. Good job. Wow. Big melon head.
That's sweet. On the Ned rig.
Holy big fat
Big
too.
fat one.
That's got to be 3.5, 4 pounds.
Yeah.
Look at that. On the Ned.
That's sweet. Got it perfect. That's just a fish catcher. I mean, if there was one bass bait I'd pick for either largemouth or smallmouth, a Ned rig would be the perfect bait.
And you work that just like I do with the swim baits for
Yeah.
walleyes. You brought it in there and
Yep.
you saw him engage
Yep.
and you had it, just tighten the line up, and a beautiful fish.
Yeah, really
when,
nice one.
When you, before forward facing sonar, is there any way you catch that fish?
There's no way. I mean, we're out in over deep water, and those fish are chasing bait right now. They're tough to catch when they're not on the weed line, but with forward facing sonar, it's a treat for sure.
Wow, what a nice bass. Not just in the slop.
That's right.
It can be in open water too. And again,
Yeah.
Leech Lake's different than this lake.
For sure.
This lake's different than other lakes.
Yep.
Different lakes, you just figure it out, right? We're
That's
getting a
right.
little program together, the fish are out. We just fish.
Yeah,
Catch what
exactly.
you catch, and that's what action lakes are all about.
Yep. Sweet. We're taking a little break from the action. We've caught pike, we've caught walleyes, and we've caught bass today. Our two main setups has been a drop shot and a Ned rig. The thing about bass fishing is there's so many different techniques. There's hundreds of techniques that you could possibly do. There's Texas rig, frog fishing, you know, drop shot. And that comes with different rods for each technique. The rods that we're using today are the Elliott Identity Technique Specific Series. This is actually a drop shot rod specifically designed to drop shot fish. This is a 610 medium light extra fast. I like the little bit shorter rod. It's kind of like jig fishing with a spot tail shiner in the spring. You have a little bit more control. These baits, like a drop shot, we weren't technically casting super far to fish. We were fishing close by and just subtle movements to keep that worm in the right position. The other rod we were using today, same thing, Identity Technique Specific Series from Elliott Fishing Rods. This is the Ned jigworm rod. This is a 7.2 medium. It's a little bit longer. This bait we were casting from 60 to 100 feet. We were looking at marks with the active target and targeting. This is actually what we caught walleyes on, bass, and pike on. But this rod, the nice thing about it is the extra length. You can cast that bait out a little bit farther. I like a medium action. We were fishing around some weeds, and with pike, with walleyes and bass, they'll get you stuck in the weeds, and you needed a medium action to get them out. As for line goes, 10-pound braid to a leader, pretty standard, but that's the two main setups we use today. Totally hooked up. What do you got, Toby?
Big walleye.
Of course.
Just another Walter. God dang it. I'm just trying to get him out of the way for you bass guys. You guys are over there having a glass of water after Jace caught that beautiful bass. And you know what? I'm just sitting there jonesing trying to catch a fish. And man, that's another nice walleye. I love your action lake, Ernster. Beautiful fish. Woo! I know. Fish location presentation. Find bait, find fish. Right. Al Linder, Ron Linder, the Linders. The Linders were spot on.
It's hard to complain.
So now we're actually out in the middle of nowhere chasing suspended smallies that are topping all over the place.
Yeah.
We have yet to get bit by anything other than these annoying, beautiful
How can they be annoying when they're
5-6 pound walleyes? Oh,
on a Ned rig?
Ned rig.
Put a little minnow on that time, but
Is that a split tail?
a little split tail, yeah.
Yep.
Just so I can work it like a minnow.
Great
Gosh,
fish.
it's hard to complain, but
I know.
it is what it is.
These action lakes are action, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, and that's the thing, you know, I mean, so many people that Toby and I get in our boat, they're so used to just fishing off the bottom,
Right.
you know, or fishing a weed line, and here we are, like Toby said, just chasing them down. So,
Yeah.
you know, again, if things aren't working, don't follow the definition of insanity and keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Do something different. Utilize your technology. It all works, and you know, it's there to help you. It doesn't make them, as we've seen today, it doesn't make them bite.
Yep,
You know,
for
but
sure.
We've put in our time for sure.
That's a bass, I think. Coming up to jump. Another largie. Good one.
Nice bass! Another one.
Really
What did we get
long
this one
there.
on?
That was a drop shot. Been switching it up a little bit with a drop shot and a Ned rig are my two favorites. They're fish catchers. That one was right on the edge of some weeds. There's actually
Perfect.
a school of them there.
Nice.
So
Another
sweet.
nice bass. That's 3-4 nice bass. Bunch of walleyes, pike.
Yeah.
What a day.
Multi-species day.
Yeah, you know, and we learned a little bit about drop shots, and we learned a little bit about Ned rigs and plastics. We tried some top waters for some smallies that wouldn't eat,
Yep.
but that's okay. We don't complain. We don't compare.
That's right.
It's fine, whatever it is. Smallmouth, largemouth, rock bass, doesn't matter as long as it's got bass in the name.
That's right.
It's been a great day. So
That's
Jace,
right.
thanks for joining us. We've had a pleasure having you, learning about a little bit more about you,
Yeah.
your college background, and what you're doing now. Of course, we'll talk about that a little bit. But thanks for teaching us how to bass fish.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me in the boat.
I'm a maniac, maniac. Oh, God, does that feel good? Oh, the mic. Shit, sorry. Anybody else want to shower?
That'll be $750, please.
You know, these blackfish shirts do a great job for keeping the UPF, all the sun rays off of us. But I did not make a great choice in color today. So thank God the old Lund has a wash down, cooled right off. Good for another couple hours. Ernster's hooked up. Looks like a smallie.
The elusive small.
Look at them all
bass.
chasing him.
Look
Look at them all chasing him. Get the head. We got a smallie. There was like a school or 5 or 6 of them. It was crazy. I don't know if the camera picked that up or not. We saw them surfacing up here. We've been talking about this. We've been chasing it. And it's a nice smallie. Go ahead and grab him, Jim, if you can. Careful of that hook. The elusive smallmouth. This lake doesn't have a huge population of big ones, but there are some big ones. Look at that one. It's a nice smallie on the, what do you call this thing?
Just a popper, topwater popper.
What are these fish doing out here, Jason? Why is this effective?
They're chasing bait over all this over this deep water. And I haven't seen much of this, honestly, before, which has been really cool because you took me to a lake that I haven't seen and we're doing stuff that I haven't done. That was really cool to just see Jim get that big one on a top water.
Oh, you made the perfect cast too.
Yeah.
And you can see these bait fish up, you know, right below the surface. And
Right.
that's one of the benefits of waves is it breaks up those balls of bait fish. It's super tough, especially for walleye to come up that high, but these smallies have no problem doing it. And so when you have those days, and again, you guys have been paying attention more to the environment than I have, but when you see something busting like that, take a chance, throw a top water, and I'm just thanking God that we caught it so we can get off the lake because it's hot as can
Let's
be
get
out
him
here.
out here to put him in there. As we wrap this up today, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for joining us on the Guide Life. This is another episode that we just finished up, and the idea today was Bass fishing for dummies. And again, in review, I am not a bass fisherman. I learned a ton today with Jace here and Jim with fishes bass as well, and multi-species. You know, we traveled away from Leech Lake to find a little hidden gem that obviously has nice walleyes. We got some nice smallies. We got some panfish, got a pike or two, and it's just full. And so Jim, as we talked about, what makes a lake like this, what makes a lake like this, again, special for clients not necessarily want to be on Leech Lake?
Right, well, and it's, again, the diversity. You know, I mean, we get so locked into, you know, wanting walleye. You know, today was a tough fishing day, a beautiful day to be on the water, but a tough fishing day. And so that's where, you know, walleyes can get to be a little tough, although, you know, I mean, we certainly put some in the boat, but it wasn't through traditional methods. There's no way you were going to catch those things lindy rigging today, jig fishing, and as we saw, we even threw some bobbers on them. So you have to, you know, kind of diversify your approach, and that a lake like this allows you to do that. You know, you don't get locked into, we fish some humps, we fish some weed lines, we fish some rocks, you know, and having that on a small body of water makes it pretty manageable and pretty attainable for, you know, any angler, not just a guide.
You know, and Jason, we followed you growing up in the Bemidji area as a bass fisherman in the Peterson family, and, you know, college bass fishing, and now you're fishing tournaments. You know, we like to do a Q&A section, you know, before we close, and Adam Lair asks, could you break down seasonal movements on Leech Lake? Now, we talked about doing a bass show on Leech Lake today, but there's a tournament, so we couldn't necessarily be on the lake. But how do seasonal movements progress on Leech Lake when we're talking largemouth, but specifically the question is for smallmouth?
Okay, so what I like to do right away for opener, you know, we can legally fish for smallmouth and largemouth on the walleye opener. There's a 2-week catch and release season, so we can legally fish for them. We just have to let them go. I'll start close to deeper water, close to wintering holes, but then that would be points or humps close to deep water. And then from that, they'll go do their thing and spawn. Usually that's on bigger, larger flats next to a boulder, sand, gravel transitions. And now midsummer, like we are now, you find fish same places on those big flats, big points, but they'll gravitate to larger boulders or a larger rock spine. And that can be anywhere from 4 to 22 feet. And then going back into the fall, you'll find them in the same spots you found them in the spring, close to those wintering holes where they'll be all winter long, but on structure.
So Leech Lake is 112,000 acres though, right? So I understand seasonal movements, like you just mentioned, is great. But for people that want to go try it, where would you suggest to start on Leech Lake? Any of those seasons, I mean, you could pick a part of the lake that has a high population of smallmouth. Where would you start, or where would you recommend for our viewers?
I'd probably get on the main lake of Leech Lake, get out of Walker Bay, get out of Sucker Bay, get out of Portage Bay, get towards the bigger parts of the lake. And
so the Pelican Island
Pelican
area.
Island, the south end Bear Island, west side of Bear Island, those areas have an abundance of big rocks, and you can see that on your map. You can look on your, you know, Lowrance units and see, you know, the asterisks where rocks will be shown. I go to those areas every time I'm on Leech Lake and try to learn more about, you know, the shallow rocks, but then use your electronics, use side imaging, use your active target if you have it. Side imaging is a big plus when it comes to fishing smallmouth on Leech Lake, finding those rock boulders, the rock spines. Exclusively, we'll drive around for hours and look for the certain type of rock, big boulders, the big spines, and then we'll go back around, we'll waypoint them, go back around and fish them.
So we'll dummy that down. Pelican Island area, rock flats, if you can only take one rod with you and put one presentation on it, what are you going to use on Leech Lake?
It'd be the Ned rig rod that we use today, that 7.2 medium. That's a really popular rod for Ned rigs, jig worming. You can throw a drop shot on it if you have to, but that little Ned rig, it's such a fish catcher. That's the #1 rod I'd bring.
There you have it, bass fishing for dummies.
That's right.
For Jim, Jace, I'm Toby, and all the guys at Leisure Outdoor Adventures. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Next one, you're going to find us back on Leech chasing the big muskies. Jeff Anderson's going to be back and a few of our guests, and they're going to be chasing the big fish on Leech Lake.
Leisure Outdoor Adventures would like to thank all their sponsors for their support in making the guide life happen.